Look, I need to be completely honest with you about something that's going to make a lot of people angry. Buying a house makes absolutely zero sense for me right now and probably doesn't make sense for you either, even though everyone from your parents to your real estate agent to random people on the internet keeps telling you that renting is throwing money away. I'm so tired of this narrative that home ownership is always the smart financial move and that anyone who rents is financially irresponsible or missing out on building wealth. The math doesn't support this claim for millions of people, and I'm going to show you exactly why. Before we dive in, let me be clear about something. I'm not anti-home ownership. I'm not saying buying a house is always a bad decision. I'm saying that for my specific situation right now, and probably for a lot of people watching this, buying a house is the wrong financial move. And the fact that we can't have honest conversations about this without people getting defensive tells you everything you need to know about how emotionally charged this topic has become. People treat homeownership like it's a moral imperative rather than a financial decision that should be analyzed based on your specific circumstances. Let me start with the most obvious reason buying makes no sense for me right now. The actual cost of home ownership is so much higher than people admit, and I'm not talking about just the mortgage payment. Everyone focuses on the monthly mortgage payment and compares it to rent, but that's only a fraction of what home ownership actually costs. When you rent, your housing cost is predictable and capped. You pay your rent and that's it. Your landlord handles everything else. When you own, you're responsible for property taxes, homeowners insurance, HOA fees if applicable, maintenance, repairs, utilities that landlords often cover, and a dozen other costs that add up to way more than people budget for. Let's actually run the numbers because this is important. In my market, I could rent a nice 2-bedroom apartment for about $2,000 per month. To buy a comparable property would cost around $450,000. With 20% down, that's $90,000 I need upfront. Then my mortgage payment at current rates would be about $2,700 per month for principal and interest. But I'm not done. Property taxes add another $600 per month, homeowners insurance adds $150, HOA fees are $250, so now I'm at $3,700 per month before I've fixed a single thing or replaced any appliances. And we haven't even talked about maintenance yet. The general rule is to budget 1 to 2% of your home's value annually for maintenance and repairs. On a $450,000 house, that's $450 to $900 per month that I need to set aside for the roof that will eventually need replacing, the HVAC system that will die, the water heater that will fail, the appliances that will break, and all the other things that homeowners are responsible for. So my real monthly cost of ownership is somewhere between $4,100 and $4,600 compared to $2,000 in rent. I'm paying double to triple the amount just to own instead of rent, and I haven't even factored in the opportunity cost of that $90,000 down payment. This is where it gets really interesting. That $90,000 I'd put down on a house could instead be invested in the stock market. If I invest that $90,000 in a boring S&P 500 index fund averaging 10% returns historically, it grows to about $230,000 in 10 years. But if I use it as a down payment, it's locked up in the house earning whatever appreciation the real estate market provides, which in my market has been averaging about 3 to 4% annually. So my $90,000 grows to maybe $130,000 over 10 years through home equity. I just gave up $100,000 in investment growth to own a house instead of renting and investing the difference. But let's go even deeper on the opportunity cost, because this is the part people really don't understand. I said my actual cost of ownership is $4,100 to $4,600 per month compared to $2,000 in rent. That difference of $2,100 to $2,600 per month could be invested. If I invest $2,500 monthly for 10 years at 10% returns, I end up with about $515,000. Meanwhile, the homeowner has paid down maybe $100,000 of their mortgage principal and gained maybe $80,000 in appreciation if the market cooperates. They've built $180,000 in equity, while I've built $515,000 in investments. And I haven't even factored in the flexibility benefits of renting yet. The flexibility argument is huge for me, and probably for a lot of people in their 20s and 30s. I don't know where I'll be in 5 years. I might get an amazing job offer in another city. I might want to relocate for personal reasons. I might decide my current city isn't right for me long term. If I'm renting, I give notice and move. Simple. If I own a house, I have to sell it, which means paying a real estate agent 6% commission on the sale price, paying closing costs, potentially making repairs to make it marketable, and hoping the market hasn't crashed since I bought. On a $450,000 house, 6% commission alone is $27,000. Add closing costs and other selling expenses, and I'm looking at $40,000 to $50,000 just to get out of the house. This means if I buy a house and need to move within 5 years, I'm almost guaranteed to lose money even if the house appreciated slightly. The transaction costs of buying and selling eat up any appreciation and then some. Real estate is only profitable if you hold it long enough for appreciation to exceed those massive transaction costs. For me right now, I have no idea if I'll be in the same place in 5 years, let alone 10 or 15 years. Locking myself into a house when my life situation is uncertain is the opposite of a smart financial decision. The career flexibility that renting provides is worth real money too. If I own a house, I'm geographically locked to wherever that house is. I can't easily pursue job opportunities in other cities because selling a house is a months-long process with uncertain outcomes. If I'm renting, I can take a great job offer across the country with minimal hassle. I can negotiate harder in my current job because I'm not desperate to stay in one location. The career opportunities and earning potential that geographic flexibility enables probably exceed any equity I'd build through homeownership in the short to medium term. But this benefit never shows up in the rent versus buy calculators because it's hard to quantify. Let's talk about the psychological burden of homeownership that nobody warns you about. When you rent and something breaks, you call the landlord and it gets fixed. You don't stress about it, you don't pay for it, it's handled. When you own and the furnace dies in the middle of winter, that's a $5,000 to $8,000 emergency that you need to handle immediately. When the roof starts leaking, that's a $15,000 to $25,000 repair you need to figure out how to pay for. Every weird sound the house makes, every crack in the foundation, every issue becomes your problem and your financial responsibility. The stress of knowing that any major system could fail at any time and cost you tens of thousands of dollars is real, and it's exhausting. I have friends who own houses and they're constantly stressed about maintenance and repairs. They can't take vacations because they need to save for a new roof. They can't invest aggressively because they need to maintain a large emergency fund for house repairs. They're house poor, meaning all their wealth is locked up in home equity while they struggle to cover the ongoing costs of ownership. They tell me they regret buying, but they're stuck now because selling would cost them so much in transaction fees. This is the reality of homeownership that the real estate industry doesn't advertise. The tax benefits of homeownership are far less valuable than people think, especially after the tax law changes in recent years. The standard deduction is now so high that most people don't even itemize, which means they get zero tax benefit from mortgage interest. Even if you do itemize, you're only deducting interest paid, not the full mortgage payment, and that deduction is worth whatever your marginal tax rate is. If you're in the 22% bracket and you pay $20,000 in mortgage interest annually, your tax benefit is about $4,400. That's helpful, but it's not game-changing, and it certainly doesn't offset the higher overall costs of ownership. Meanwhile, if I'm investing the difference between owning and renting in tax-advantaged retirement accounts like a 401k or IRA, I'm getting tax deductions on those contributions and tax-free or tax-deferred growth. The tax benefits of maxing out retirement accounts probably exceed the tax benefits of mortgage interest for most people, but somehow the narrative is that you need to buy a house for the tax benefits while ignoring the better tax benefits available through retirement investing. Let me address the big argument that everyone makes. You're building equity when you own instead of throwing money away on rent. First, this assumes your house appreciates, which isn't guaranteed. Plenty of markets have seen flat or declining home values for extended periods. Second, you're not throwing money away on rent, you're paying for housing, which you need regardless of whether you rent or own. The question is which option costs less and provides better returns when you factor in all the costs and opportunity costs. Third, in the early years of a mortgage, you're barely building equity anyway because most of your payment goes to interest. In year one of a 30-year mortgage on a $450,000 loan at 7%, you'll pay about $30,000 in interest and only $8,000 in principal. You're throwing away $30,000 in interest plus property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and all the other costs that provide zero equity. That's way more than I'm throwing away on rent. The difference is I'm investing the gap between my rent and the total cost of ownership, which is building wealth faster than the homeowner is building equity. Here's another factor that people ignore. Houses are not guaranteed to appreciate. Real estate is local and cyclical. Some markets do great, others stagnate or decline. The national average appreciation is around 3 to 4%, which barely beats inflation. You could easily buy a house and see minimal or negative appreciation over 5 to 10 years, depending on local market conditions, interest rate changes, economic downturns, or demographic shifts. Meanwhile, the stock market has averaged about 10% annually over very long time periods, with much more consistent returns across different time periods and geographies. I'd rather bet on the entire American economy through index funds than on one house in one neighborhood in one city. The timing argument is critical too. We're potentially near the top of a real estate cycle in many markets. Prices have increased dramatically over the past few years. Interest rates are high. Affordability is at historic lows. Buying now means buying expensive with expensive financing. If prices moderate or decline over the next few years, early buyers will be underwater on their mortgages. I'd rather wait and see what happens with the market rather than rushing into home ownership at what might be the worst possible time to buy. But there's so much social pressure to buy now, to not wait, to get on the property ladder before it's too late. That pressure causes people to make emotional decisions instead of rational ones. The forced savings argument that people make doesn't hold up either. Yes, a mortgage forces you to build equity through monthly payments, but if you have the discipline to invest consistently, which you should develop anyway if you want to build wealth, you don't need to be forced to save through a mortgage. You can set up automatic investments that build wealth much faster than mortgage principal paydown. The forced savings benefit only matters if you're so undisciplined that you'd spend every dollar otherwise. And if you're that undisciplined, you probably shouldn't own a house anyway because you won't maintain it properly or save for repairs. Let me talk about lifestyle and quality of life differences between renting and owning. When I rent, my weekends are free. I'm not mowing lawns, fixing things, doing yard work, painting, or handling the endless maintenance tasks that homeownership requires. My time is valuable. If I spend 10 hours per month on home maintenance and repairs that my landlord would otherwise handle, that's time I'm not working on my career, building side income, enjoying hobbies, or spending with people I care about. The time cost of homeownership is real and it compounds year after year. I can also rent in areas where I couldn't afford to buy. I live in a great neighborhood close to work, restaurants, entertainment, and friends. To buy in this area would cost $700,000 plus, completely out of reach, but I can rent here for reasonable money and enjoy all the location benefits without the financial burden of owning. This location advantage has career and lifestyle benefits that are hard to quantify but very real. If I bought in a cheaper area farther out, I'd have longer commutes, less access to opportunities, and lower quality of life despite building equity. The social pressure to buy is so intense that it's worth addressing directly. Family members ask when you're going to stop throwing money away on rent and buy a real place. Friends who bought houses judge you for renting like you're not a real adult. Society treats homeownership as a milestone of success and responsibility. But here's the thing, making good financial decisions sometimes means going against social pressure. Just because everyone else is buying houses doesn't mean it's the right choice for you. Most people make mediocre financial decisions. Following the crowd usually leads to mediocre outcomes. I'd rather be the weird guy who rents and invests aggressively than the normal guy who's house poor and stressed about maintenance while all his wealth is locked up in one illiquid asset in one location. In 10 or 15 years, when I have substantial investment wealth, geographic flexibility, and career options, I'll be in a much better position than my peers who bought houses they couldn't really afford and are now stuck with them. But for now, I have to deal with judgment and pressure from people who don't understand the math or haven't thought through the opportunity costs. Here's what people miss about the buy versus rent decision. It's not universal. It depends on your local market, your interest rate environment, your timeline, your career situation, your life stability, your financial discipline, and your priorities. In some markets with low home prices relative to rents and low interest rates, buying makes clear financial sense. In other markets with high prices, high rates, and high rent-to-price ratios, renting is obviously better. The answer isn't the same for everyone, and pretending it is does a disservice to people trying to make informed decisions. For me specifically, renting makes overwhelming sense right now. I live in an expensive market where the cost of ownership is double the cost of renting. I'm young with uncertain long-term plans. I value career flexibility and geographic mobility. I'd rather build wealth through investments than through real estate. I don't want the stress and responsibility of homeownership. I'd rather spend my time on things other than home maintenance. All of these factors point clearly toward renting being the better choice for my situation. That doesn't mean I'll rent forever. Maybe in 5 or 10 years, my situation changes. Maybe I'm more settled, more certain about location, have different priorities, or find a market where buying makes mathematical sense. I'm not ideologically opposed to homeownership. I'm just opposed to buying a house when it doesn't make sense for my specific circumstances right now. And I wish more people would evaluate this decision based on their actual situation rather than social pressure and outdated assumptions about homeownership always being the smart choice. The bottom line is this: buying a house makes zero sense for me because the total cost of ownership is double my rent, the opportunity cost of the down payment and monthly difference is hundreds of thousands in lost investment growth, I value geographic and career flexibility that ownership destroys, I don't want the stress and time burden of maintenance, the tax benefits are minimal, transaction costs make selling expensive, and I'm potentially buying at the top of a market cycle. Every rational analysis points toward renting and investing being the superior choice for my situation. The only argument for buying is social pressure and the vague feeling that I should be building equity. Neither of those is a good reason to make the biggest financial decision of my life. So yeah, I'm gonna keep renting, keep investing the difference, keep my geographic flexibility, avoid the stress of home ownership, and build wealth faster than my house buying peers. And if that makes me weird or financially irresponsible in some people's eyes, I'm completely fine with that. I'd rather be weird and wealthy than normal and house poor. The math supports my choice even if the social narrative doesn't. And honestly, more people should run the actual numbers for their situation instead of just assuming that buying is always better than renting. You might be surprised by what the math tells you when you're honest about all the costs and opportunity costs involved.